Right now, we're on a government panel discussion. We're looking at talking on the topic governing security of information and operational risk in critical infrastructure and government services on a national level. Well, we're looking at talking about cybersecurity for the MENA governments, challenges, strategies, and opportunities, navigating cyber threat intelligence and a roadmap to secure nation, safe e-government, digital advancements for the future of secure government services, smart cyber solutions for smart cities, and how to minimize cyber threats for critical national infrastructure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for this, we're joined by our eminent panelists. First up, Dr. Osama El Hassan, the Vice Chair of Emirates Health Information Security Specialist Health Informatics and Smart Health Department, Dubai Health Authority, Board Member, International Society of Telemedicine and eHealth, Dubai Health Authority, UAE. Well, Dr. Osama helps in ensuring that the healthcare organization is well prepared to meeting growing challenges while maintaining clinical excellence and technical competence, and is imperative in maintaining one's competitive advantage. We're also joined by Dr. Bushra Blooshi, the Head of Research and Innovation, Dubai Electronics Center, Security Center, UAE. Dr. Bushra being the Deputy Director of Information Services Department in Dubai Electronic Security Center. She's also somebody who's worked in organizations such as ANOC and RTA, where she managed different project teams and worked closely with business departments to strategically automate their manual processes. Well, we also are going to be joined by Laila Abdullah Hadhrami, the Digital Transformation and Change Management Expert, Ministry of Technology and Communications, MTC, Oman, Director, Oman Smart City Platform, Oman. Well, Laila is the Senior Executive Digital Transformation in the E-Transformation team in Ministry of Transport, Communications and IT, and is also a director of the Building Capacity and Awareness in the Smart City Platform. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're also going to be joined by Jamila Abdullah Al Ali, Director of IT Operations Department, Ajman Free Zone, UAE. Well, Ms. Jamila is an experienced IT operations director with a demonstrated history of working in the government administration industry. She's somebody who's skilled in the business planning and analytical skills, focused in science and innovation and change management. And this entire panel discussion is going to be moderated by Alina, the founder and coordinator, UNTA, the Young Youth Action Hub, Oman. Oman. So Ms. Alina is a scholastic scholar and the youngest member, ELDP UNCTAD Youth, Oman's Young Leader of the Year and the Middle East Women Award as well recipient. So ladies and gentlemen, with this, I'd now like to pass on the live baton to our eminent panelists with Alina taking the lead forward and moderating this wonderful panel discussion. Also, I'd request if you may have any questions for our eminent panelists out there, because I'm sure your brains are all revving up in the morning and you'd like to get your questions answered, please feel free so by typing it in the Q&A tab. I'll pass it on to Alina at the end if time allows. Over to you, Alina, for taking it forward with your eminent panel today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bhavna, and a happy 2021 to all my lovely panelists, as well as everyone from Trescon. And at the second edition, MENA edition of the World Cybersecurity Summit, it's an absolute pleasure to be moderating your session today. Welcome, our lovely panelists. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We are here to talk about something really important. And rather than having, a virtual discussion, I just want to talk about what is the governing security of information and operational risk in terms of the national level. So I'm just going to open the floor because we all know that the pandemic took us by surprise last year. We are still amidst of the second strain in terms of different parts of the world as well. But when it comes to cybersecurity, especially for the MENA governments, we are facing challenges. There are new strategies coming up, as well as there's opportunities within these frameworks. I'd like to open the discussion, perhaps starting with Ms. Bushra, if that's okay. In terms of cybersecurity, which was pre-pandemic and then post-pandemic, or even right now, have you noticed any challenges that the governments have faced in terms of the cybersecurity space?
Thank you, Elena, for the introduction. I think when we are talking about cybersecurity, cybersecurity is the crucial element for any digital transformation strategies or change. So we noticed huge shift from manual processes to digital online shift when the pandemic happened. And that introduced substantial challenges and new issues that we never expected in the previous life or in the previous services that we are offering to our community and to our governments. So for sure, the pandemic introduced new challenges, but we should always utilize those challenges, and we should always utilize the crisis as a time and as an opportunity for us to prepare for the next crisis and to prepare for the next pandemic, let's say. And we should always utilize the pandemic time in order to improve, innovate, come out with the new techniques, come out with the new technologies in order to improve your cyber resilience. And we should always tackle the lessons learned. So we shouldn't utilize the pandemic, or shouldn't see the pandemic as a negative let's say, situation, but as a positive situation. So let's gather the lessons learned. Let's understand what worked in this pandemic and what didn't work, what we were missing, why we are in this situation right now, what we need to improve better. So as I said in my keynote, there are 3 core elements that we need to review ourselves with. The first thing, do we have a cyber resilience strategy in place? Do we have proactive measures that can help us or support us when the second pandemic will happen? Do we have a sustainable operational or resilience strategy or plan that can support us in the future? And maybe the last element is about our infrastructure. Do we have an infrastructure that is scalable, that can support us to grow with the digital transformation, and that can also be resilient at the same time to offer the same services that we were offering before pandemic, offer it digitally with the same quality and with the same, let's say, level of transparency with our customers and with our government entities?
Thank you so much. And I think that's such an important point that you brought up as well. To have the same kind of quality while you are mitigating from your normal conventional ways of working into the digital sphere. Mr. Osama, what would be your take on it in terms of the pre and during pandemic? What were the kind of challenges, say, the governments were facing in order for us to really adapt to this change?
Thank you very much, Alina. So can you hear me? Yes, okay, thank you. So actually coming from the healthcare domain, we were actually in the frontliners through the pandemic. And we clearly saw what was happening on the ground. And actually we were trying to guide the government to make decisions with regard to locking down, for example, or taking measures. So even most of the data that comes to support decision makers through the pandemic mainly comes from the healthcare domain. And this put a lot of pressure on us. So what we saw through the pandemic, that there were 3 or 4 patterns that really affected security. So the first pattern is that the huge demand of, I can say, instant digitalization. Decisions were taken to develop huge systems to support managing COVID. We saw a lot of companies transform their operating models, asking to adapt to the lockdown by allowing employees to work from home, for example. And this put a lot of pressure on all security programs within organizations. Even we cannot neglect also the impact on the people, on the society. A lot of people, I can say, some of them lost their jobs, or some of them they were harshly hit financially, and those for sure became more of stressed, anxious, and this also reflects sometimes to cyber threats. So anxious people or unhappy people can be part of the army of attackers. So this is another way. Finally, I can say also the complete supply chain. Now we are, most of the businesses now are trying to go for outsourcing, are trying to go for dealing with third parties to do part of their operating model. And this also put huge pressure on the cybersecurity programs, privacy programs, and we knew throughout the pandemic that those programs are somehow inflexible. We need to have cybersecurity 2.0, another way of doing things. Now everybody has cybersecurity experts or security because they look like they are hindering the progress of resilience, to being resilient or to COVID. So this is the new experience to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Jamila, I'd like your take on this in terms of the public and private sector especially. What were the strategies that were being used by governments to kind of secure this domain? Because like what Dr. Osama said rightly is it affected people literally from healthcare sector to the accounting sector to the IT sector. It actually happened at a time where people anticipated really fast measures to be taken. What were the kind of strategies being used, especially in terms of securing the cyber network?
First of all, I would like to thank you, Elena, and the whole team for having me today. And it's my pleasure also to be with such great group of the co-panelists. And I think we all can agree that 2020 was a real transformational year. You can hear me, right? Okay, I think we can all agree that 2020 was a real transformational year for the way the services are being provided for the consumer. So people went totally online through the online panels and the online channels to submit their transaction, whether it's governmental procedure or even the daily grocery shopping. So as a result, of course, the security teams are having a daily challenge due to the increased attack volumes and the data breaches. And I think that such technique will, security technique will continue to be there in 2021. As you know, the pandemic is still in its peak and people still more toward the online and the digital channel to submit their daily transaction. So now more than ever, government and corporate leaders, as well as the consumer, must all work and engage together to ensure that the effective cybersecurity are in place. So the security strategies or the priority should be an improvement of the detection, the analysis, the mitigation, and the response to the sophisticated cyber threats. With the focus on government infrastructure and other systems that hit the national interest. Also, it's important to educate and empower all the citizens with the information, confidence, and the practical tool in order to enable them to protect themselves online. Another critical approach, I believe, is to partner with the businesses in order to promote the security and resilience in the infrastructure, network, and also the product and services. Also, it's very, very important to model the best practices in the production of government information and communication system, including the online portal that the government are used to promote their services. Also, the focus should be to maintain the effective legal framework and enforcement capabilities in order to target and prosecute the cyber crime. Finally, I think government also should promote the development of skilled and talented cybersecurity workforce and give them the access to the research and development in order for them to develop and come up with an innovative solution that can enhance the cybersecurity practices in the organization.
Thank you so much. The terms that I'm seeing recurring here between the three of you, at least, are in terms of quality being untouched, resilience, the fact that we do bounce back. For this, moving forward, what I would like to do is also get your take, Ms. Laila, because what we are hearing now in terms of moving forward with cybersecurity. So I would like to ask you, what does e-government actually mean, Ms. Laila?
Thanks, Alina, for raising this question. It's really great to be among all of these speakers. And when it comes to e-government, everyone is, asking, what's the relation even between e-government and the cybersecurity? So when it comes to e-government, it looks like a house. So when you have a house, what do you have in that house? You have your own policy, you have your own frames and so on. We need, for example, we have a governance on the automation of the services to the, as Bushra has mentioned earlier, that we should have our policy, for example, in building our own, security policies if we are going to use any new technology. So we are going to automate our services, but in order to automate our services, we have also, to have a very strong empowerment. We have first to empower the people who are going to work in the automation, because when it comes to the automation, you need to educate, the people very well on this field. Because, some people, they say, okay, we are going to automate these services, but how they are going to automate it? Are they just going, to move it from a paper to be online? Or they are going to do it with the correct way. And the correct way, we have to teach them how to do the re-engineering process for the process. Because the old services that we used to have it in paper, it has a lot of procedures. The citizens or any customers, when they used to apply for these services, sometimes it takes 1 month to 1 year. I know it looks silly to say that number, but it's really, people are still suffering in some organizations, some countries, and we are all sharing the same pain, that some services, it take longer time. So when it comes to digitalizing, automating these services, so we have to reduce the waste. It has to be by seconds, so let us say by minutes, in order to get that service with required organization. But as you all see, the more we are going digitalized, the more we are getting threatened by this, this cybersecurity and so on. So we need badly also to secure the automation of our services, and we need also to keep educating people. So we have to get a very, one ecosystem digital transformation that has all the components, whether it is, educating and empowering the people who are going to work in the automation of these services, a very, dedicated framework that has all the policies, whether it is the security or the policy of creating a website, or the policy of the user experience, the accessibility, people who are going to access your website or the services and so on. So we have to make sure we have one smart ecosystem that has all these elements.
Thank you so much for that. And I really like what you said in terms of creating the actual ecosystem that provides a conducive environment when you are talking about any kind of e-services. And this is not even required in terms of the government bodies, but actual SMEs as well would require these kind of services, which is something that is also an upcoming trend that we are seeing. So when the pandemic hit, what happened? Automatically, there was an opportunity created. But I'd like to ask a question now directed at Ms. Jamila for this is, okay, now we're talking about, we know that there was a pandemic, we're still a part of it. We know that there was a very strong need in terms of digitization. We know that there is an importance of cybersecurity as well. And we also know that there is something called as a cyber threat. Now, when it comes to the measures now taken to support the nation to create a roadmap, for a secure nation, what are the measures that we can see in terms of the IT industry moving forward?
Yeah, this is a very important question, because eventually we cannot manage what we cannot measure. So it's very important to measure the security in order to understand the whole picture and be able to, create a roadmap. So measuring the metrics or the KPIs of cybersecurity will help us to see the whole picture when it comes to the InfoSec. So if we are not able to track the key performance indicators or also the risk indicators, we won't be able to clearly understand how effective the cybersecurity efforts have been in our organization and how they have been improved or declined over the time. So without a very solid historical data to depend and rely on, we won't be able to make informed cybersecurity decision. Rather than that, we will do decision blindly without any pace. Also, measurement of cybersecurity will help us also to communicate with the business stakeholders and non-technical colleagues, and this will have more enhancement on the decision making and the evaluation of the cybersecurity efforts and the budgeting. So examples of cybersecurity metrics or KPIs that government and organization should measure is, for example, the cybersecurity awareness training that the people have taken in the organization. For example, who attended, did they understand the material or not? Also, the mean time to deduct and the mean time to repair. It's very important to know that how long the security team took and then until they deduct a security threat, and how long did it take from them to resolve it. Many other measurements like the number of security incident reports, the access management, who have the access of administration, who have access to which object, the security policy compliance, the viruses infection monitoring, the cost per incident, because it's very important to understand and know how much does it cost to respond to a cyber threat, and how much money we are spending on stuff over time, the investigation cost, the productivity loss, and the communication with the business stakeholders. The most important thing that we have to consider, there is no a solid list of KPIs, of metrics that we can choose. The most important thing that these KPIs should be clear, relevant, and give a full picture of the government or of the organization cybersecurity in order to make a better decision over the time.
Thank you so much for that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tie in bits and pieces that was said by Ms. Bushra, Ms. Jamila, Ms. Laila, and I'm going to ask Mr. Osama a question. So Ms. Bushra spoke about resilience, which is basically the ability for any ecosystem to bounce back. Ms. Laila highlighted the fact that you really need to have good quality. And Ms. Jamila just now spoke about data. And all this kind of brings in the healthcare system now. That was the first industry to be impacted by this. Dr. Osama, what is your take in terms of creating that roadmap to secure the nation for the IT industry in terms of this now? You are on mute.
So thank you very much for the question. So I believe that we need to handle this in 3 different levels. So the first level is the regulatory aspect. I believe that without having a good foundation of regulation that allows not only to respond to attacks, but even to develop what we call trusted frameworks of healthcare or any domain. So ensuring trust, and ensuring trust comes only through regulation that highlights not only managing crimes if they happen, but we need to put some sort of a price tag for cyber attacks. So if an organization got attacked by a cyber attack and their system or their framework was unoptimized from the cybersecurity perspective, they should be punished for it. The negligence, we need to set a bar saying that if you don't reach this level of trust, then if any attacks happen or any cyber attacks happen, you should pay a price for that. And we can see this in some regulations like in HIPAA in US, for example. So in certain breaches or certain cyber attacks, those organizations who were attacked should pay fines for them if we ensure that their systems were not optimized. So we need to have kind of a mind shift on this perspective. The second part, we need to have more talents in the cybersecurity space, talking about people who are really looking into cyber attacks or cyber threats from a strategic point of view. looking into the risks associated with our assets. We need to understand our assets, our data. We need to classify them. So once we classify our assets, we can really do a good job with regard to risk assessment. So I can give you an example from healthcare. So in healthcare, we usually analyze or classify data. So we are talking about two main groups of data. One's related with identifiable data of patients, and the others could be normal data, clinical data. So we put 80% of our efforts to protect identifiable data. We think that it will never happen that we reach a point where we can prevent attackers to reach into our system, but we need to think differently. What should we do if an attacker manage to get into our system? We need to make their life difficult. We need to prevent or protect the most valuable assets from any threat. So this is the shift in mentality that we need to have. We need to think more strategic. We need to protect the most valuable assets. And also we need to have the right talents to support cyber. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's a very interesting point that you brought up in terms of actually having a standardized, probably a rate or a measure that you can measure cyber optimization in terms of, are you doing the right thing? Are your levels up to the par that we're seeking? Are you able to actually protect yourself against basic cyber threats? And I think that is something for every organization to also think about, is what is your framework in terms of your IT within your departments or your company, or even working remotely, I think. And I'd like to get Ms. Bushra into this right now. Ms. Bushra, could you also give me an example, perhaps? What are the programs being implemented in terms of digital inclusion? Because not only it's affecting, like Ms. Jamila highlighted, the public and private sector, but it also affects people from different realms, entrepreneurs, for example, who are just starting out as well, or people who are, in the MSME space as well. So what are the programs, or could you highlight any one program that is kind of born out of the idea of digital inclusion?
Actually, in our case, maybe in UAE in general and in Dubai specifically, we are getting strong leadership vision and support towards moving to digital transformation. And that happened maybe 10 years or 20 years back, when His Highness Sheikh Mohammed first said, I want all the current services to be translated or transformed into an online digital services. That was the first step. And he gave the ministers like 5 years period or 2 years period. And he said, I want to come at that day, at that year, and maybe our colleagues in UAE, they remember that. And I would like to see the services has been shifted to an online services. And then when he came back, all ministers were able to achieve that first milestone. Then the second milestone that he gave them, he said, okay, now since the services has been digitalized, I want all the services to be available on the mobile. And those services should be available 24/7 to all citizens in UAE. And he gave them again 1 year, and within that 1 year, most of the ministers again and the ministries were able to achieve that objective. So from digital transformation to services over the mobile to services that are available 24/7. And then another good example is what we established in Dubai as a cyber smart city initiative. And the website is available for everyone to have a look. It's called dubaipulse.gov.ae. So this is a big initiative that Smart Dubai started like 5 or 10 years back, but there are lots of consequences, lots of policies, lots of processes and procedures that they took in order to bring up all the government entities to the level, as Dr. Osama was highlighting. So Dubai Data Establishment, they issued clear guidelines for all government entities to identify or to classify their data. What we should identify as open data, what should we identify as sensitive data, what can be shared across government entities and what shouldn't be shared. And for that, they issued a clear law. It's Dubai Data Law, in Dubai data law, it gives a clear guidance on how government entities should classify their data. And then they did a couple of training sessions, and they associated focal points in the government entities to handle the data classification within the government entities, so all of us can speak in the same language. When I'm saying open data, it's an open for everyone. When I'm saying a data that can be shared with the government entities, then we all know what type of data that can be shared. Based on that, so having the ground, classifying the data, classifying what can be shared, what cannot be shared, the platform was developed. So there was a journey before that platform was developed actually, and that journey started with establishing an entity responsible for data, then issuing a law that gives a clear guidance for all government entities on the classification matter. And after that, the platform has been developed with the support from Dubai Electronic Security Center to make sure that this platform is secure enough to hold the government data in it, and then to develop the use cases on top of that. So when I'm saying open data, then there are lots of use cases, and there are lots of startups and entrepreneurs that can come to that platform and develop new use cases out of that data. So that was a real, let's say, successful story that we noticed in Dubai when it comes to digital transformation initiatives.
Thank you so much. And I absolutely love this panel because everything is so perfectly interrelated with you visionaries here. Ms. Bushra literally spoke about the smart city concept. And I'd like to now ask Ms. Laila a question with regard to smart cities, because I know you are the pioneer in terms of smart city solutions in Oman. So when people talk about, cyber solutions being smart, could you give us some examples for those maybe who are now new in terms of understanding what a smart city is? What are the cyber solutions that could be actually smart? Could you give us a little bit on that?
Thanks, Alina, for raising this important question. So yes, as you said, when it comes to smart cities, we're also speaking about the smart solution that is secured. And one of the things that really make me happy, yesterday, I have a meeting with one of the companies that they are selling, it's not selling, but they are working in smart solutions. And they are very much advanced. It is the National Center for Energy in Oman. And they are very experienced with the smart metering in Oman. And what I love on them, as soon as they came so they can speak about their smart solution, they say, we are secured. Now, everyone is speaking about the security, because even if you have a smart solution, you have to guarantee it's going to be secured, because we have a lot of smart solutions. As soon as we are getting digitalized, we are getting more opportunities to be attacked. And as Dr. Osama said, we have to understand the mentality of the hackers, how they are going to hack us. So we can, be aware about that. We have to educate people and so on. Now, even the companies that they are providing these solutions, now they are starting to selling their, their smart solution differently. They say, we are bringing to you a smart solution, but it is secured. So if we are going to have a smart city is like my smart home, my home. If I want to be, comfortable to live in a peace in my home, first of all, I have to guarantee that I'm living in a very peaceful neighborhood. And all of us, it will be the same for us. If I'm going to use that service, I have to guarantee it's going to be safe for me. Sometimes, when we get the attacks, it is from individual behaviors. And as, Dr. Osama said, how we are going, to prevent such attacks. So we have to keep educating these people so we can keep our environment smart with, by using these solutions. So sometimes also, we also encourage the government entities to use some of the smart solutions, for example, the blockchain. If you are going a lot to have some, smart solutions, or using digitalization in some services that needs contracts or needs, some payment and so on, you can use, for example, the blockchain as, the smart solution in cybersecurity. And when it comes to the IoT, we have now IoT in different fields. We have the IoT used as devices, in smart metering, in smart energy to detect the pollution of the air and so on. So we have to be careful. The technology is really great and it is perfect and made our life easy, but we might pay, as Dr. Osama said, we are going to pay a lot of money who are getting hacked through these smart solutions, or let us say the digitalized solution. So that's what I can add from my side. We can be smart, but we have to be secure at the same time.
Absolutely, and I actually agree with that. Now, I would like to ask you in terms, Ms. Jamila, in terms of getting, the public e-services up and available, what are the different kinds of services that are at the moment available for people in your country, UAE?
Yeah, as Ms. Bushra said, here in the UAE, we have a great commitment and a great involvement of the leaders, and that created a culture in the UAE in terms of the online and digital services. So I believe that the maturity level of online services and digital services are very high and advanced in the UAE, especially the challenge that Ms. Bushra raised when His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid took his phone and he challenged all the government and the leaders in the UAE that within a very tight deadline, if you cannot move your services from the online into the smart services, you have to prepare for your firewall. So this challenge created a culture in the government of the UAE that we should always provide our services within the hands of the consumer and the users. They should not waste time to go to the entity or in the organization in order to provide their services. They should be able to do all their services within a few clicks. So after that, many ministries and institutions and policies have been formed in the UAE, and all the government energies and capabilities were given to support the digital transformation journey in the government of UAE. And as a result, also, we have more than 4,000 services that is available online, federally and local services for the users. They can apply for any kind of services, and technologies like the UAE Pass and e-verification are being implemented to make sure that the security and the privacy of user data are there and in place. Also, the e-services that the government of the UAE launched have a number of features, including the ability to upload the document online, do the payment online, and even get their documents signed through their portal. So also, in the government of the UAE, they go beyond of that. They use now the AI technology. As recently yesterday, His Highness announced they will start using the face recognition technologies in order also to reduce the paperwork and reduce the increase the security in terms of personalized information. Giving you an example here in Ajman Free Zone. Ajman Free Zone is one of the first free zones in the UAE, which established in 1998. And today we serve more than 9,000 companies from over 160 countries over the world. And we have a community of more than 55,000 staff or persons served with services and procedures and with many competitive packages and advantages. So over the years, Ajman Free Zone have developed their digital transformation journey. And as a result, today, any investor can start the business in Ajman Free Zone online through the digital channel without have to come to the Emirate of Ajman or to Ajman HQ to start the business. So literally, anyone can establish a company and get the license approved and signed to his portal without even have to come and provide their document here in Ajman Free Zone. Not only establishing a company is online, also managing the company and upgrading their businesses can be done through the portal. And we almost have all our services online with high qualified and high secured channel to submit their transaction. So as a result, today Ajman Free Zone is the home of more than 400 technology companies, and this resolved the streams of Ajman Free Zone into the digital and sustainable development of the economy of Ajman as a whole. So being a very lead in terms of digital transformation and having your e-services online, also, as mentioned by my colleagues, create another opportunity that you become a lead entity in the world, and all people start to recognize your services and create even better opportunity for you to grow and to grow in the market.
Thank you so much. Dr. Osama, we are not going to leave you out of this conversation. And I'd definitely love to have your intake in terms of how is digital inclusion being so important? And can you name some kind of program, maybe in the healthcare sector, if you may, that is implemented out of the need for having actual digital advancements?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. So I have a very clear project that we've been embarking on since 2014, which is called the Health Information Exchange or the Unified Medical Record. So the concept of this project is to share healthcare data across the healthcare ecosystem. So if I'm a patient moving from public to private healthcare facilities, I want my data to follow me rather than just carrying my files of tests and results and consultation from hospital to hospital. And we've already started this journey in 2014, and it's crowned by the announcement of 3 HIE projects across the UAE, one for Abu Dhabi and one for Dubai, and the third for Ministry of Health and Prevention. And they are all will go under one umbrella called the Riayati project, which will be supervised by Ministry of Health. So if a patient who's living in Ras Al Khaimah and moving to a hospital in Dubai, the healthcare providers within the facility in Dubai will be able to see their medical history from whatever hospital that he has visited during the last, I can say, 10 or 20 years. So this is what we call it, the longitudinal health record. So this is just an example of a project that really support the digital inclusion, because it will reach to every citizen in the UAE, regardless of their, I can say, digital capabilities or digital awareness. So they will be able to see how their data are moving across facilities, and this will give better insights to doctors and to decision makers.
Thank you so much. And I think it's so important, not only in the MENA region, but I think so even globally, to have synchronized data mechanisms that actually work in terms of data following you, and you not actually having to catch up with where your data is placed. Very important point, Dr. Osama. Thank you for bringing that up. I'd like to get Ms. Laila into the conversation, because I know you're also involved in projects such as the Oman IT Society. But I'd like to take all our attention away from, the day-to-day and talk about youth for a change. Ms. Laila, what are the different kind of programs that are there to create cyber threat or cybersecurity awareness for youth?
When it comes to 2020, I'm sure all of you will agree with me, although it was very quiet, not moving from our homes, not traveling, missing, that lousy life and so on. But it was, very crowded with the cybersecurity. People who are working behind, the hackers and so on, they become more creative in hacking people and trying to use different methods. Because as Dr. Osama said, the mentality of the hackers are changing and they're becoming creative time by time. So from that, point of view, we decided in Oman IT Society to come with one dedicated program, and we call it Aman. Aman means in Arabic, be safe. So we have decided to launch this program to be full year dedicated, because we have known that many people have been searching, have been hacking, and they have paid a lot for that. So we decided to it's not just starting, but we have to keep and have more efforts in educating people through Aman program, which is being dedicated for 1 year, and it's sponsored by one of the companies here in Oman, which is Oxy company. So we started educating people differently. Usual people, they say, let us do more workshops. We decided to reach people in different methods. We have targeted the influencers in the cybersecurity because we have a lot of people who are influencers. So we contacted them and tell them, we need you to be our ambassadors so you can have the same language as Dr. Bushra. We have to speak all the same language. So we get all the influencers. We started first with 16 influencers in cybersecurity, and we have designed some posts. So people, they start asking about Aman, what you are trying to do through Aman. And we know that so many women, so many girls are the most, percentage from the people who are getting threatened, that they get, threatened, but they do not go to the police or, to the prosecution. So we're trying to deliver a message. Don't be silent. You have to complain. You have to get your rights. If you get that, we are with you. So we're trying to create some videos, some more posters, so we can educate everyone, all the categories. And we're also going to launch chatbot because, sometimes when you get hacked, you need somebody to speak to that person. So we decided to launch that chatbot, and it's going to be launched soon, inshallah. And so if you need to know more about these details, you can also follow Oman IT Society in all our social media, so you can know more about Aman and how we are going to help and empower people in cybersecurity as they are influencers or are they technical, so they can, know how to deal with the different hackers who are going to be creative and creative. And I will say they are creative because they are coming with different scenarios. So we have to also be prepared with the community. So that's what I can say about Aman. And I hope anyone can be interested to know more about it. You can reach me or you can reach our website in oits.gov.ol.
Thank you so much. I'd also like to now talk to Ms. Bushra about it. In terms of moving forward, where are we going with national cyberspace?
I think national cyberspace is the core. It's a reality. It's moving forward. It will not step back anymore. I think we need to put the strategies and we need to put the right policies and procedures around it. And we need to have a better collaboration and cooperation mechanisms. We need to establish that collaboration between us as countries, regulators, government entities, and we need also to establish proper international agreements and collaboration in order to share information, in order to share resources, and to make sure that we are aligned with other nations around us. So in the cyberspace, it's not anymore about competing. So I'm not competing with other government entities, but rather than I should work with them closely in order to share that information, to share any incidents that company A is having versus company B. A good example is what the central bank are doing, for example, here in UAE, of establishing an ecosystem among the banks in UAE. Yes, they are competing in everything else. They are competing in the offers they are providing for the customers and how they are delivering their businesses, but they are not competing when it comes to cyberspace. So when it comes to cyberspace, the central bank in UAE actually is trying to encourage the banks to share the information among each others. So whenever an attack happening in bank A and that bank A is sharing the information immediately to bank B, then we will prevent lots of attacks, lots of scenarios to propagate across the different sectors we are having. So it's about having proper collaboration and interaction mechanisms across the different sectors and across the different businesses that we are having nationally and internationally.
Thank you so much. Last parting words, talking about cybersecurity and moving forward. Ms. Jamila.
Yes. I think now, as my colleagues here say, we need to educate people. We need all to take the same language because at the end, the user is the first line of cybersecurity defense. Because even if we have the most sophisticated systems and capable system, without the user awareness, we will not be able to get the whole benefit and the whole features of these systems. Talking about UAE recently, even they launched the digital well-being charter, where they put all the rights and the awareness videos of users that can have how to keep themselves secure and how to keep themselves or their data private online. The most important also thing, the other thing is important is having, especially that we are talking about governments, we should have the leaders involved in the cybersecurity roadmap implementation and strategy implementation. And taking an example of the UAE government, which is very advanced in cybersecurity. I think and I believe without our leaders' involvement, we couldn't reach what we reach today. Today, we have a Ministry of Technology, Advanced Technology. We have as I said, the Digital Wellbeing Charter that recently launched. We are the home for very advanced technologies over the world. So without having the leaders' involvement and challenges that they give for their government entities, we will not be able to reach the ultimate objectives of cybersecurity. So in order to move forward, we need to all work together. We have to all work and engage together, and we have to set the metrics that are clear and understandable by everyone. User awareness should be there, user engagement and motivation of talent workforce should be there in order to ensure that the cybersecurity controls and systems are implemented as the way it should be.
Thank you so much. Dr. Osama, on to you. What are your feedback in terms of moving forward in the national cybersecurity space?
Well, I agree with all the panelists with regard to having a more collaborative approach to support sharing experiences, sharing knowledge about cybersecurity at both public and private sector level. So this is one thing. Also, I think that we need also to support, as I said, developing talents that can really implement cybersecurity. They're not just talking the talk, but also walking the walk with regard to new developments in cybersecurity. I think the inclusion also of AI-based solutions more and more acceptable in the domain. And especially those that are not just for doing analysis, but also to be more of kind of actionable solution that can really be responsive to any changes in the environment or in the detection of attacks. So we can have automated response to threats. I think this is very important. I think also we need also to be more focused on the awareness on training for employees, for the public. This is a very important part that we need to tackle. And this should be even reached to the level of regulations and policy, that training should be a habit rather than something that we do sporadically. I think this is a very important point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Laila, what about your feedback in terms of moving forward?
Moving forward, when it comes to the cybersecurity, it is the responsibility of everyone. You know, when you speak about e-government, there is a specific organization, but with cybersecurity, it's all responsibility. And as Jamila said, we should start it from our top management, and luckily that I'm sure that most of us, we have, you know, specialized centers and so on in cybersecurity. But the most important thing that we have to, you know, move this sentence, this phrase that cybersecurity is the responsibility of everyone, because in the past we have the wars, but nowadays the cybersecurity is threatening everyone. It's threatening the child, woman, men. So we have to be prepared, and we have to be all soldiers so we can speak the same language and educate ourselves and our surrounded. So it has to be the responsibility of everyone.
Thank you so much, and I completely agree with that. In terms of us being soldiers, thank you for being the leaders in the field of IT. Bhavna, on to you.
Thank you so much, Alina. Firstly, I would really like to thank all our eminent panelists for giving us your valuable time. Well, we do have one question from the audience, which is directed to one of our panelists. So, Alina, if you may allow, could I post the same to our panelists as well? Perfect. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just posting it in the chat box as well for our reference of our eminent panelists. There's a question from Anna directed to Dr. Bushra, wherein Anna says that she would thank you for your opening presentation. And she asked that in the light of the Oldsmar water plant hack, what are the specific measures that Dubai is specifically taking to tackle critical infrastructure as cyber attackers are exploiting security loopholes present in legacy critical infrastructure? While as I know it is directed to Dr. Bushra, I would also be open to any of our eminent panelists to contribute to the answer as well. So first up, Dr. Bushra, would you like to take that up?
Thank you for this important and interesting question. So as I said earlier, it's all about your critical national infrastructure. It's all about how you should secure such national infrastructure. So water, electricity, and all of those are very critical services to our community. We need to be prepared ahead of time before the pandemic or before the attack happened, actually. So what we did in Dubai, for example, so after identifying the critical national infrastructure, and water and electricity were one of the main sectors over there, we went to identify the gaps, and we went to identify the operational plan on how we can secure those services so they are available 24/7 whenever the community needs them. So cyber attacks, it's not anymore about stealing your data. It might impact also the human safety. It might impact the patient safety. So it's everywhere. I think we are shifting from information leakage towards human safety when it comes to the cyber era. So the question is very important. And what we did in Dubai, as I said, so we issued our Dubai Cyber Resilience strategy or plan a few months back. And we also issued an ICS security standard. So it's a specific standard only for the ICS OT security in order to guarantee that our ICS infrastructure is secure enough, it is resilient, and it can operate as the community is predicting it to operate. So with that standard, we had several sessions with the OT security experts in the city in order to bring them in the same place, on the same table, so they can discuss, they can share knowledge, they can share experience among them. And the next step will be, inshallah, to automate the controls that we have in the ICS standard. So usually once we issue a standard or we issue a policy, usually we do an audit step. So we give the entities or we give the responsible, let's say, parties like a 1 year or 2 years period before they implement the controls that are mentioned in the standard. And we are developing the standards, by the way, with the parties. So we are not developing the standards alone and then issuing it to them. We are developing the standards with them. We are issuing the standard. We are giving them a time frame in order to deploy the controls and the measurement that we have in that standard. And then we are visiting them after that period just to audit and to make sure that they are compliant with those controls. Moreover, we are also trying to automate most of the controls we have in the standard by different means and different platforms. One of the means is the certification scheme. Another mean is by having a system or a tool that can automate those controls and making sure that those controls are being implemented in the way that we wanted to be implemented. So it's not about the standard at the end of the day, it's about the implementation and the controls that we are having in place.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Bushra, it's all about implementation, as you rightly said, and the control you are having. Well, I'd also request if any of our eminent panelists would like to contribute to this question. If yes, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we'll choose to conclude with this panel discussion. So, Laila, Jamila, Dr. Osama, if any of you would like to contribute to this answer to this question.
I think Dr. Bushra, she covered everything, and that's more than enough.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what even I was gauging from her answer, that she actually spoke everything from the top to bottom about this question, and we couldn't have had anyone better to answer on this particular aspect. So thank you so much to our eminent panelists, Dr. Bushra, Laila, Jamila, and Dr. Osama for joining us. And Alina, you once again did an incredible job for moderating this wonderful panel. Well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us, and to all our valued panelists for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks to all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, and wish you a happy 2021. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Osama. Thank you.